Life is easy, yet somehow we manage to make it difficult. We add layers of worry, piles of doubt, and mountains of hesitation to situations that were never meant to break us. Think about it. Most of the challenges we face start not in the world around us, but in the conversation we keep having with ourselves. Life presents a simple path, but we complicate it with excuses, with overthinking, with fears that grow faster than our courage. And if we're honest, most of the weight we carry is self-made. But here's the truth. When you change how you see life, life itself begins to shift. When you stop assuming everything must be a struggle, you start discovering how much ease was available all along. The keys are clarity, discipline, and intention. The moment you decide to simplify your thoughts, your actions, and your expectations, everything begins to flow differently. Life doesn't suddenly become perfect, but it becomes manageable, even meaningful. You see, the real battle isn't out there. It's in here. It's in choosing peace over panic, purpose over confusion, and progress over perfection. The moment you stop fighting what is simple, you regain power over your own path. Life doesn't ask us to be extraordinary every day. It asks us to be honest, consistent, and willing. And when you live that way, you realize something profound. Life was never as hard as you made it. It was simply waiting for you to stop complicating what was already simple. Life becomes hard when we complicate simple truths with fear, doubt, and unnecessary pressure, and this is one of the biggest hidden reasons we feel overwhelmed. Most of the challenges we face are not as heavy as we make them. It's the story we attach to them that creates the weight. A simple task becomes stressful the moment we start imagining every possible way it could go wrong. A small goal feels impossible when we allow self-doubt to whisper that we're not ready, not capable, or not enough. Fear turns a single step into a mountain, and pressure turns everyday life into a battlefield of expectations. We take the natural ups and downs of life and, instead of flowing with them, we resist them, overthink them, and build emotional walls around them. That resistance is what makes life feel hard. The truth is, most situations carry far less danger than the fear we build around them. Most decisions are far simpler than the overthinking we apply to them, but we've been conditioned to believe that life must be difficult to be meaningful. We create drama where there is none. We complicate paths that were already clear, and we pile responsibilities onto ourselves that no one asked us to carry. This self-created heaviness becomes a habit, one that makes us tense even when nothing is wrong. And because we expect things to be hard, we approach them with a defensive mindset, bracing for impact instead of moving with confidence. Fear magnifies tiny moments into crises. Doubt convinces us that the worst-case scenario is the most likely one, and pressure makes us chase standards that exhaust us instead of elevate us. But if we peel back these layers, we find something surprising. The core of life is simple. Growth is simple. Progress is simple. It's our emotional clutter that complicates the journey. When we stop adding unnecessary stories to simple facts, the weight begins to lift. When we stop assuming struggle is the default way of living, life reveals its natural rhythm, one that is easier, lighter, and far more manageable. Life becomes easier not because the external world changes, but because we stop making everything harder than it needs to be. When we focus on what is real instead of what we fear, when we take action instead of overthinking, and when we allow ourselves to breathe instead of suffocating under expectations, life starts to feel different. It starts to feel clearer. It starts to feel possible. And most importantly, it starts to feel like something we can actually enjoy rather than something we're constantly trying to survive. Our mindset determines whether life feels heavy or light, and this truth shapes every experience we go through. Two people can face the same situation. One sees an obstacle too large to handle while the other sees a challenge that will make them stronger. The difference isn't in the situation itself, it's in the mindset they bring to it. When the mind is filled with negativity, worry, or confusion, even the smallest problems feel overwhelming. But when the mind is trained to look for possibilities, solutions, and lessons, life begins to feel far more manageable. Our mindset is the lens through which we interpret everything, and that lens can either distort reality or bring it into focus. A heavy mindset creates heaviness everywhere. You wake up expecting difficulties, and so even ordinary tasks drain your energy. You approach opportunities with hesitation, convinced you're not ready or worthy. You react to setbacks with frustration, believing they're proof that life is against you. This mental weight makes each day feel like a struggle because the mind is constantly searching for what's wrong instead of what's right. When your inner dialogue is full of limits, fears, or excuses, your world shrinks. You stop trying. You stop growing. You begin to carry life instead of participating in it. But when the mind is light, focused on gratitude, clarity, and purpose, everything changes. You wake up with a sense of direction instead of dread. You face challenges with curiosity instead of panic. You make decisions with confidence because your mindset supports you instead of sabotaging you. A strong mindset doesn't remove difficulty, but it gives you the ability to navigate it with calm and resilience. It turns problems into puzzles, failures into lessons, and uncertainty into opportunity. With the right mindset, life feels less like a burden and more like a journey you can actually enjoy. The most powerful thing about mindset is that it is chosen, not assigned. You can decide how you think, how you interpret events, and how you respond to what life gives you. This decision, repeated daily, becomes a habit that shapes your entire reality. When you consciously train your mind to look for progress instead of perfection, for effort instead of excuses, and for growth instead of fear, you begin to lighten the load. Life becomes easier not because external circumstances change, but because your inner world stops fighting against you. You begin to experience life with clarity, strength, and openness, and that shift alone can turn even the hardest moments into stepping stones towards something better. Small shifts in perspective can transform daily struggles into manageable steps, and this is one of the most powerful truths about how we experience life. We often assume change must be big, dramatic, or life-altering to make a difference, but in reality, the smallest adjustments in how we think can completely reshape our emotional landscape. A single shift, choosing to see a challenge as temporary instead of permanent, choosing to view a setback as feedback instead of failure, can lighten the weight we carry. Life doesn't always require a breakthrough. Sometimes it only needs a gentle turn of the mind to reveal a path forward. Every struggle feels heavier when we look at it through a narrow lens, when we focus only on what's going wrong or what feels unfair. But when we widen that lens even slightly, the same struggle starts to look different. Instead of asking, why me? We start asking, what now? Instead of getting stuck on what we can't control, we begin noticing what we can influence. Instead of assuming things will stay hard, we begin to realize that most of our difficulties are phases, not permanent conditions. These small mental shifts reduce stress, restore clarity, and create space for action. Perspective changes how we move, how we react, and how we decide. A day filled with tasks feels overwhelming. When we approach it with anxiety, but it becomes manageable when we break it into steps and focus on progress rather than perfection. A conflict feels unbearable when we assume the worst about the other person, but it becomes a conversation when we choose to see the possibility of understanding. A goal feels impossible when we think we must accomplish it all at once, but it becomes achievable when we shift towards steady, consistent effort. The situation may stay the same, but the way we relate to it transforms everything. These shifts are not about ignoring reality or pretending everything is easy. They're about recognizing that our interpretation often creates the emotional burden we feel. When we adjust that interpretation, even by a few degrees, our experience becomes lighter. We start noticing opportunities we missed before. We react with patience instead of panic. We approach life with curiosity instead of fear. And over time, these small shifts compound. They build confidence, resilience, and emotional balance. Life becomes easier not because the obstacles disappear, but because our perspective stops exaggerating their size. When we learn to shift our mindset even subtly, we turn complications into clarity, confusion into direction, and struggles into stepping stones. The power of a small perspective shift is that it doesn't just change the moment. It changes the way we move through life entirely. Simplicity, discipline, and clarity are the foundations of an easier life, yet many people overlook these principles. because they seem too basic to matter. We often chase complicated solutions, believing that a big change will magically fix everything, when in reality, the simplest habits and the clearest thinking create the greatest transformation. Life becomes easier when we stop scattering our attention across 100 directions and start committing to the few things that truly matter. Simplicity allows us to breathe, to focus, and to remove the noise that keeps our minds tense and overwhelmed. When we simplify our routines, our goals, and even our expectations, we create space for calm and progress to exist together. Discipline is the bridge that turns simplicity into strength. It's not about forcing yourself through life. It's about building small, consistent actions that make everything flow more smoothly. Without discipline, even the best intentions fall apart. But with discipline, even the most overwhelming tasks can be broken into manageable steps. Discipline removes the mental burden of indecision, because once you've committed to a standard, whether it's waking up at a certain time, following a routine, or working toward a goal, you no longer need to negotiate with yourself. That internal peace is what makes life easier. You stop battling your own mind and you start cooperating with it. Clarity ties everything together. When your mind is clear about what you want and why you want it, you move with confidence instead of hesitation. You stop taking on unnecessary responsibilities because you understand what aligns with your direction and what doesn't. Clarity helps you see the difference between urgent and important, between noise and value, between distraction and purpose. It allows you to make decisions faster, recover from setbacks with more ease, and navigate challenges without being mentally scattered. A clear mind naturally leads to clearer actions, and clear actions naturally lead to a simpler, more balanced life. These three elements work together in a powerful way. Simplicity removes the excess. Discipline adds structure, and clarity provides direction. When combined, they transform daily chaos into something orderly and manageable. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by life, you begin to feel guided by it. You create routines that support your goals rather than sabotage them. You make choices with intention instead of impulse. You stop drowning in thoughts and start moving with purpose. Most of the stress we feel comes from unclear goals, inconsistent habits, and unnecessary complexity. When these are replaced with simplicity, discipline, and clarity, life becomes easier, not because challenges disappear, but because your approach becomes far more powerful than the challenges themselves. We often forget that ease begins from within, not from outside rewards, and this simple truth explains why so many people chase comfort yet rarely feel it. We live in a world that teaches us to believe ease will come once we achieve more, earn more, or become more. We convince ourselves that happiness will arrive with the next promotion, the next relationship, the next opportunity, or the next milestone. But every time we reach one finish line, another immediately appears. The pursuit never ends because external achievements can't quiet an unsettled mind. Ease isn't something you find out there, it's something you create inside yourself. When your inner world is chaotic, filled with fear, doubt, comparison, or self-criticism, no amount of success will feel peaceful. You could have the job you dreamed of, the lifestyle you admire, or the recognition you long for, and still feel overwhelmed because your inner state dictates your experience far more than your outer circumstances. A calm mind can find peace even in difficult situations, while a restless mind struggles even in comfort. This is why inner ease is the foundation of a fulfilling life. It's built through self-awareness, emotional balance, and the ability to guide your thoughts instead of being controlled by them. Ease from within comes from learning to slow down the noise in your mind, from letting go of unrealistic expectations, and from releasing the pressure to constantly prove yourself. It begins when you stop searching for validation and start building self-trust. When you trust yourself, your choices, your abilities, your direction, life feels less like a battlefield and more like a journey you can navigate with confidence. Inner ease is understanding that you don't need the world to be perfect for you to feel grounded. You learn to breathe through discomfort, to stay centered during chaos, and to remain patient during uncertainty. Another part of inner ease is self-acceptance. When you stop fighting who you are, you stop creating unnecessary resistance. So much of the difficulty we experience comes from trying to be someone we're not, or trying to live up to standards that were never ours to begin with. But when you accept yourself fully, your decisions become simpler and your path becomes clearer. You stop complicating your life with comparisons or insecurities, and you start honoring your own pace, your own values, and your own growth. Ease begins from within because a peaceful inner world shapes every outer action. When you carry calmness inside, the world feels less threatening. When you carry clarity inside, options feel less confusing. When you carry confidence inside, challenges feel less impossible. And when inner ease becomes your foundation, life stops feeling like a struggle you must survive and starts becoming an experience you can fully live.